بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Just give me a second. So first, I would congratulate the Folsom community for buying the new building. And I promise that I will come back because I want to see the new building and I want to speak in the new building because I've been speaking in here and visiting here for quite a long time. So really this is a monumental development for the Folsom community. I remember this area which was only farms and only one exit. So the fact that this community is expanding and the Muslim community in general, not only in here but across the state, is being visionary, developing institutions, and taking its rightful position within the larger mosaic of American society. I did the study on the Muslims in the Bay Area in 2013, and at the time we had close to 250 to 280,000 in the Bay Area, excluding Sacramento. Now the number of Muslims in the Bay Area is closer to 600,000 in terms of the expansion. And if you add Sacramento and Santa Cruz and the areas around, the Muslim community is literally beginning to be an important contributor to the broader society in here. My talk is not about the Muslims in here, but I will speak to our responsibility at the end. Now, watching what is taking place in Gaza, from one side you are pained for the daily carnage that we are seeing. The daily death that is visited upon the people in Gaza is 100. Today it was 104. The withholding of food, water, destructions of hospitals, schools. Now we're about to see whether the Israeli military is going to have a massive operation on Gaza City, which is concentrating a large number of civilians in a very small area. So from one side, we could understand what is taking place in Palestine, but I want for us to think in a broader sense that what Gaza has done is really rechange the global world system in the following way. The world system has been functioning in post-World War II international law, international system, the United Nations, the fact that certain principles on the conduct of war were deemed to be unacceptable. Gaza exposed the contradiction and also the lack of adherence to international law as it relates to the global south. It's not that Gaza is the only place, but Gaza made it possible for people to begin to recognize that the wars that the United States have carried out in Iraq, the wars that carried out in Afghanistan, the current war in Yemen, the war in Libya, in Sudan, Gaza made it possible for us to recognize that we don't have a legal system that applies to everyone. We have a double standard. There's a legal norm that applies to the global north, and there are no legal norms that applies to the global south. People were thinking that we are arrived at a global society that everybody is to be treated equally, that racism does not exist, or at least that was the rhetoric, that we have moved away from the colonial era. But what the reality demonstrates is we still have a structure that is vested in double standard. And it's not because Gaza has the largest number of people being killed, because if you've been watching Sudan and the Congo, there are a large number of people and death and destruction, hunger and violations of rights in both the Congo and Sudan as we speak. And Libya is another also state that has faced the consequences of this double standard. But Gaza made it possible for us to actually see in a clear eyes of what is taking place. So today, no Western diplomat can arrive in the global South and speak in a straight face about international law. No Western diplomat can come and speak with a straight face about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No Western diplomats can come and speak in clear ways that you need to progress toward sovereignty or independence in a way that before Gaza, right, this was the norm. Whenever a Western diplomat comes, and for those who are from the Arab and Muslim world, you basically maybe a touch of the divine has arrived, right? The Khawaja attitude, like as soon as the blonde hair, blue eye, suit and tie comes, right, we give them the first line, right, entrance, and everybody pushes out. Those days are over, right? We no longer have accept this notion relative to the Western world, the norms of World War that were put in place post-World War II. The second issue, we have now arrived at the moment to understand that we are in a post-colonial world system. I want us to understand we are in a post-colonial world system. Colonization was a period where the troops, Western troops, were there. The political system of colonization was there. Educational system is colonized. Right? All of this is there. Now in the post-colonial system, only the troops are out, but the educational system, the economy, the political structure, the modes of control are still subject to the same colonial control. Because somebody says, why the Arab and Muslim world is not helping Gaza? That's the joke on us, because we believe that we are actually independent and sovereign. The reality, post-colonial states are controlled, dominated, and managed in the same way that you have a 7-Eleven franchise. We have a post-colonial franchise. How this functions, all of the economic assets of each of the Arab and Muslim countries are controlled and dominated by their ex-colonial motherland. How many of you go to Hajj or went to Hajj? Right? You do tawaf around the black Kaaba, right? Your Hajj is not complete. You have to do tawaf around the White House. Right? Mentally, we have understood that our being is connected to being accepted by the global north, accepted by the British, accepted by the French, accepted by the American. So post-colonial states, only the troops are out, but the economy is controlled. Educational system is still colonial. Cultural structures and patterns, right, whose superior and inferior is still subject to that colonial structure. We have not moved from post-coloniality to decoloniality. Because decolonization is not only the removal of the troops. Decolonization is removing the colonial master that is living in your mind. Do you understand that? Removing the colonial master on inside your head. And for us in the Muslim Arab world, we're still having the colonial master living in our head. We have been accustomed and taught we can do for ourselves without Mr. John coming and telling us to do what we need to do. So Gaza actually made it possible for us to see things in ways that we have not been accustomed or used. So when we talk about Gaza, Gaza is a war that has been carried out by Israeli troops, supported by European NATO forces, supported by the United States, constant supply every 14 hours, military hardware is sent to Israel, and supported by Arab countries and Muslim countries. All right? That's what Gaza is facing in relations to this current period, and that is happening in a post-colonial structure. Very important. People don't understand post-coloniality versus decolonization. So that's the second point that we need to understand. Now the third is that we are witnessing a complete transformation in the global north as a result of what is taking place in Gaza. Right? Because if I sit in here and tell you poor Palestinians are being killed, that's not analysis, that's just a fact. Close to 400,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. It's not only 65,000, close to 400. Harvard University said just about 4 weeks ago, 377,000 are missing from the registry in relations to Gaza. So the total death in Gaza is literally about 400,000, which is getting closer to 20% of the population. That's just facts. What is occurring is a complete also transformation occurring in the global north. 2 days ago, one of the largest investment pot of money from Norway completely divested from the Israeli economy, from 11 companies. Right? One of the largest, right, investment endowments for employees completely divested from the Israeli economy. That's a monumental step, even though when we look at it, it says, well, it's not that significant. It's actually very significant. Last year election in France, which took place right in June, the party that won the election, led by Michelin, said that you cannot run in my party without having a position against the war that is taking place in Gaza. If you don't take a position, you cannot run on my platform, you cannot run on the party. His party won the largest number of seats in the French parliament. Don't think that Macron's shift that we are witnessing today is coming out of nowhere just because he ate a lot of croissant. He didn't. It's the political dynamics in France, because Marine Le Pen was ready literally to her party to win, expecting to win and move into the Champs-Élysées. The election actually completely turned opposite, and the dynamics in France is going the direction where positions on Gaza and position on Palestine is foundational, and I would say that that shift is taking place very rapidly. The British election, similarly last year. For the first time, you had actually 5 independents that won their seats specifically on having a position on Gaza, including Jeremy Corbyn, right, who ran as an independent. If you know the British politics, it's very difficult to win as an independent. And it's very difficult when you're independent and all of the media is actually have been tarnishing your image for so long. 5 seats were won independent. 28 seats in the Labour Party were also from the Muslim. Large number of them also campaigned on a Gaza. And now we have a new party that is being formed, right? And the party that has been formed have already registered 800,000 members, which is the largest party in terms of numbers being registered in the UK. And the key part of their platform is a Gaza platform. Meaning what we're witnessing in real time, changes taking place in the UK. And if election, actually they're calling for an election, for a snap election take place, because Stormer people are dissatisfied, and they're calling for, if the election is held, in my estimation, in the next few weeks, if, I'm not saying it will, that the largest number of seats will be won by the new party. And part of this dynamic, in terms of what is occurring, is that there is a reorientation of people's attitude domestically in the UK, as well as in relations to Gaza. People have lost the fear factor. Right? Fear makes you accept the unacceptable. What often Zionists have often done is actually make us fearful from stepping out and saying the things that needs to be said. If you notice, the fear curtain has dropped. People are saying things out in public, out on the media, out on social media, out on YouTube, out on mainstream, that was unthinkable just 3 years ago, or even unthinkable just a year ago. That is a direct outcome of witnessing the genocide, and the continued demonization of the Zionists to the individuals collectively is no longer registering. You know, the whole monetization or weaponization of anti-Semitism is no longer working. Right? And we're seeing this in front of our eyes taking place. Now let me come to the United States, and I could actually speak about Belgium, speak about the Netherlands. Right? The Netherlands declared Israel as a state of national security concern. Right? The Netherlands have declared that Israel is a state of national security concern, meaning that it constitutes a threat on the Netherlands. That's it. If you know the politics in the Netherlands, if you know Geert Wilders, if you know the Islamophobic discourse in there, for that to happen shows you that there is definitely a shift that we are witnessing. Now, coming to the United States in here. The Democratic Party membership, in poll after poll, and the most recent poll says Democrats support Palestine by a margin of 54 percentage point change between 2017 till now. In this period of 8 years, a shift of 54 points in the positive toward Palestine versus being pro-Israel. The polling says this is unprecedented type of shift that we're witnessing. Poll says Democrats are supporting Palestine position 77%. So 77% of the Democrats, right, are pro-Palestinian. American public, both Democrats and Republicans, are at 53% on the side of Palestine. Now, how is that? Whether it's calling for liberation of Palestine, calling for independence, it's not the specific, it's that we're witnessing a transformation of public opinion that is occurring in front of our eyes here in this country. Now, we know that the Democratic Party has been shifting on Palestine for some time. We're also witnessing some cracks occurring within the Republican landscape, especially as a result of the Jeffrey Epstein case. If you notice the Jeffrey Epstein case, some of the statements that are being put out, you could see clearly there's anti-Semitism in there. We cannot defend some of those statements. But what can be said that Jeffrey Epstein does have a connection to the Israeli Mossad. No one who could actually look at this case with the straight face and straight eyes would not say that this was an operation of entrapping individuals of powerful standing in such a way that they will be utilized for extracting political positions favorable to Israel. That's not controversial. That's just what you call, all the way from the Roman Empire up to yesterday, that is just one of the tools intelligence services use. Either you use what you call these entrapment relative to these relations, money in terms of trying to create resources, drugs, and so on. These are the tools that are deployed. So Jeffrey Epstein have created a crack within the right wing here in the United States. And if you notice Tucker Carlson, some of the commentaries taking place indicates that there is a shift. If you notice the tweets from Marjorie Greene from Georgia, she's Islamophobic, she's anti-Semitic in some ways, but she's actually focusing. AIPAC should register as an agent of foreign power, right? AIPAC should be registered as an agent of a foreign country. Tucker Carlson, in a conservative conference, goes up and says if you served in the Israeli military, you should be stripped of your American citizenship. The fact that he actually said this, and people clapped for him in the audience. A few years back, if you said this, you no longer actually be allowed to take a stage, let alone be able to speak. So in front of our eyes, we're seeing what is occurring here in the United States as it relates to the shift of public opinion. Democrats is already moving very rapidly, right, in relations to having a decisively pro-Palestine position. And I hope that you are aware and following Mamdani's election in New York. Right? Don't get caught in what you call the minute details. Well, I don't agree with him on this. I don't like him giving free bus rides for people. That's not un-Islamic. Like people begin all of a sudden to have fiqhi position, right? As if they had a fiqhi position about us giving $20 billion to the oil industry. They didn't have a position about people getting free lunch, right? The United States is going to give Intel. Anybody here work for Intel? I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry, you already got from Intel, your salary is being paid by me, taxpayer, because Intel has gotten $7.6 billion grant from the US government. And now yesterday or 2 days ago, the federal government is going to take a stake or a portion of Intel to rescue Intel, right? I thought that we're in a free market economy, free enterprise, that you rise or sink on your own. That's like what you call Martin Luther King. He said we have socialism for the poor, capitalism for the poor, socialism for the rich, right? Including our buddy Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, I got a Tesla, right? Every time you get a Tesla, he gets $7,500. What a good deal. Like, it's a genius, right? So again, in terms of what we are witnessing in front of our eyes, this shift that is occurring in the United States is occurring because of all these different elements coming simultaneously relative to Gaza and relative to the political dynamics in this country. So again, I want us to not be caught in Mamdani should not give free bus rides, but notice on what happened. Mamdani won the majority of Jewish votes in New York. Do I want to repeat this? Zahran Mamdani won the majority vote in New York. This is after AIPAC spent close to $35 million on Como. You know Mario Como? Right? The sexual harassment Mario Como? The one he can't keep his hands away? The one had to fake and completely hide the data about the death in retirement homes? The person that have enough scandals that Iblis will run the other way around and say, I can't associate with you? AIPAC put $35 million to try to get him elected, and he did not win. That tells you there's something happening relative to where people are, especially in, whether it's in New York or other places. The fact that Zahran Mamdani wins 57, the majority of Jewish votes in New York is completely unprecedented, and tell us even among the Jewish population there is an abandonment of Israel. Anyone below the age of 44 in the Jewish community the majority is shifting away from Israel in a large decisive number. So we also have to be cognizant when we speak about Israel and speak about Zionism that we don't lump all of the Jewish community in the same bucket and think of it in that way. And you know, in the protest, Jewish Voice for Peace, International Anti-Zionist Jewish Network, large Jewish populations are coming out in large numbers. They understand that Zionism is no longer actually is the center of their identity. There's not the center of their moral vision and perspective, and that is occurring in front of our eyes. So Democrats have shifted. We're seeing this. Republicans, we're seeing cracks taking place in there. Now, what do we need to do for ourselves? Because at the end of the day, we have to do our part. Right? So let me say the following. Muslims in this country have a very important role to play as a bridge between understanding what is taking place in Palestine and articulating their views and their perspectives in here. So, one is that we have to be doubly, quadruply, to the 10th time as engaged and as involved in the political dynamics that are taking place. To say, inshallah, tomorrow somebody else is going to do it, inshallah, is not going to happen without us doing the work that needs to be done. So you need to actually respond. And I know some people say, I cannot bear watching what is taking place. It's very difficult. If you can't bear watching, don't watch. Go out and do the work that needs to be done. All right? So we don't have a language for giving up in relations to where we are and in terms of the responsibility that we have. So I want people to continue to respond. There's action alerts taking place. There's mobilizations taking place. Just when we drove up here from the Bay Area, there are people having banners, Palestine banners. There was support for immigrant banners. Take a way for you to adopt, here in Folsom, adopt one freeway, overpass, and rotate throughout the months for actually dropping banners in relations to Palestine. One, you have 200 people, 5 people can be doing this once a week or whichever, so to actually be able to do so. Second, we are witnessing the political change, so we need to be engaged in the political process. Right? I hope that we have already arrived at a mature time where people say it's haram to engage in the political process. Anybody still in that area? All right? Again, at a certain point, people say, "Oh, we're not going to engage. Nothing is going to change." Actually, it's change is possible, and the only consent that you have in the political process, if you pay your taxes, you're already consenting to the political process. All right? If you pay your taxes, you are consenting to the political. The only thing that you're not actually following up to determine where your money goes. That's the only thing that you're actually absenting yourself. So he said, I don't want to participate in the political process. And you think that you're a genius and you're like Abu Hanifa of the olden days. You're not. If you pay your taxes, you're consenting to the political system. The only thing is you don't want to tell the person who's deciding your taxes where to spend your money. For me, as a Palestinian, I am paying taxes. I can't bear that my taxes is going to supporting Israel and supporting the genocide. And if I need to be in the face of a congressman, of the local city council, of an investment endowment fund or retirement fund, then I feel that I am responsible to do so. So I want us to be in the face of these political figures. Right? I want us to be assertive. Right? And I will add, and here possibly for Muslims, I know we have a lot of adab discourse, like, oh, you have to have adab, right? Distinguish between adab of engagement versus adab of silence. That is not actually acceptable. There is no adab of silence in the face of injustice. Is the opposite of adab for you to see injustice and not actually express at least what you are able. If you're able to change it with your hand, you do it. If you by speaking against it, you do it. And the least is to detest it in your heart, and that is the weakest of faith. Today, people are choosing to be silent, thinking that is actually the adab, and there are some discourses that are taking place in that. So I want us to be assertive and to be engaged politically in that way. Now, third, I know that we're going to have a massive, massive need once the war either comes to an end or development takes us in one direction or the other. There will be massive need. There's massive educational need. All of the universities are destroyed. All the schools have been destroyed. All the hospitals or what's left of the hospital is destroyed. So us in here, we have to begin to think of what will be our contribution to rebuilding the Palestinian society and infrastructure. Meaning that we need to think creatively. I know that the humanitarian relief organization will come and say, who can sponsor an orphan? Right? Alhamdulillah, that's good. But who's going to build the universities? Who's going to offer classes? Who's going to be actually able to do all this? So if you're a person that is skilled in all of different fields, we need your skill in here. Dua is accepted, but action is actually far more needed in order to rebuild. So we need to think of rebuilding before the war ends. And I know that people, what you call, suspended their thinking, waiting for the war to end. By the time the war ends, you cannot actually just war ends or stops and you begin to think. We need to begin to think today about what are our contributions. So if you're in the tech field, think, creatively, what can be done? If you're in the educational field, what can be done? If you're in the healthcare field, what can be done? And I know there are different pockets of people engaging in ways in order for them to contribute toward rebuilding the Palestinian society and rebuilding what has taken place. Now, I want to keep time for questions. Today, for us, AMP, we just won our legal case in Northern Virginia. All right? So American Muslim for Palestine, we've been facing legal lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, demonization lawsuits from the Zionists, from all kinds, in order to try to disrupt our work. So we had a case in Nevada. We won our case in Nevada. Today, just literally before I drove, we got the complete dismissal of all of the claims by the plaintiffs without any prejudice, meaning that they have nothing to stand on. So we won the case in there. So every time we went to court, we won our cases. And I do believe that we will be winning cases not only in relations to our cases for AMP, but cases of the students. Just make sure that we will be winning the cases on free speech. We will be winning the cases on freedom of association. We will be winning cases in universities. But we have to be both patient and tenacious. Patience and tenacious. Don't run away just because somebody says to you, don't do this, or you're not allowed, or we're going to call the police on you. You need to actually be patient, tenacious, and particular for college students. If you're a college student, for the community to support the college students, to support their efforts, to support their, whether it's in Sacramento State or UC Davis or Berkeley or any of the places, support them. And the support should extend also both resources but also encouraging them. I know that the older generation, don't do any work, right? Just get your degree. When you become a doctor and you become what you call, collect a whole bunch of, a nest of eggs, then you could actually use whatever you have acquired to benefit Palestine, Kashmir, Congo, and so on. That actually usually does not translate to effective outcome, because by the time you actually wait to be a doctor, which is 7 years, then they say, oh, you need to specialize, that's another 3 years. Oh, you need to get married, and then you get married, then there are 2 kids, and by that time that's it, you're in semi-retirement mentally. All right? That was the discourse that we had for our community, and that does not bring about change. If anything, it actually leads to almost a continuation of the status quo. So don't actually be an agent of defeatism and an agent of immobilization, especially for the young people, because I do think that there will be many legal cases that requires community support and requires for us to stand by the young and the youth in order for us to actually make an impactful, transformative change, which I do believe it's coming. Lastly, I wrote an article says the end of Zionism, and it will come suddenly. I do believe that Zionism no longer have a standing globally. Now, between the end of Zionism as a ideology and as a genocidal policy versus the liberation of Palestine, it might take a number of years. But every colonial system is destined to be undone. And I do believe we are witnessing in front of our eyes the undoing of this colonial system. It doesn't mean you're not going to have Palestinians in dire circumstances. The last 3 years of the French colonial domination of Algeria, they killed 1.5 million in Algeria. It is the nature of colonial system. Once they begin to lose control, is they use maximum violence, thinking that they can reconstitute the colonial system. And my estimation that we will be witnessing the most violent period in Palestinian history. And I wrote an article back in 2022 saying that this coming year is going to be a violent experience for the Palestinians. We already, before even the events that took place, 1,000+ Palestinians were being killed in the West Bank. Leave Gaza aside, it was a systematic, and I'm actually thankful for Netanyahu, right? Netanyahu yesterday, right, he says he's been called on a historical, spiritual, what you call positionality, that he's not satisfied with Gaza, right? He wants to make Gaza the Riviera with Mr. Trump. He's not satisfied with that. He's not satisfied to annexing the West Bank, which Trump and the U.S. administration is already giving nod. He's not satisfied with the Golan Heights. He's not satisfied that he's already taken the Sharm el-Sheikh area in Syria. They're about 10 miles away from Damascus. Right? This genius, Netanyahu, says, I want Jordan. Right? He wants Greater Israel. He wants Jordan. He wants Lebanon. And he wants, Egypt, the pyramids, because he wants to have, if you're coming tourist, maybe he'll charge people to go up to the pyramids. He wants Egypt. And he wants Saudi Arabia. Right? Because Mecca and Medina area, this is part of Greater Israel. And he says it on the news in an interview. Right? Now, all of the Arab who were committed to the Abraham Accords, who do tawaf in the White House, they were just like saying, we thought we're partners. They didn't know that they were on the menu. It's just all of a sudden, he just said it exactly as he said it. So I'm thankful to Netanyahu. Right? I'm really thankful. Because he also sent Ben Gvir to the United States to come and talk to the American public. Ben Gvir, as your spokesperson to come and speak to the American public, it's like, I don't know which PR company they hired. So again, we're witnessing these moments of transformation, and I do believe that we're witnessing the undoing of Zionism in front of our eyes. Now, the change might take a year, 2 years, 3 years, but it is a change that is irreversible. You cannot reconstitute Israel's positionality in the world in the way that it was pre-genocide. That's just the reality. And the fact that people already are saying the genocide in halls of Congress, people in Europe are already saying genocide, right? People are calling for the arrest of Israeli soldiers that are served, and I do think that we have also people that would be called for genocide and taking people to charge. Lastly, I just submitted a ballot measure for the California ballot to be actually in that we will begin collecting signatures for it, inshallah. It's the Freedom to Boycott Act. In here, it's a specific ballot measure for the California 2026 election. As you notice, our right to boycott Israel is constantly being curtailed, demonized, and restricted. So we're hoping to put this ballot measure on the California ballot. We submitted it on August 11th. The Attorney General will be reviewing it. Once they review it, then we will begin to collect signatures for it to appear on the 2026 ballot. I do believe if we succeed in collecting signatures and it's on the ballot, I believe that California voters will vote for the right to boycott because it's within the First Amendment and within the constitutional right. So this is again our effort of how to counter and to be able to actually advocate in the location that we are in ways that are creative. So I do believe that we will witness a free Palestine in our lifetime, and inshallah all of us will be gathered in Jerusalem sooner than later, inshallah. So jazakumullah khair. I'll take your questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakallah khair. My name is Jamal Halim, Jamal Halim, I go by Jamal Halim here. It's a very enlightening lecture. Originally from Sudan, so we have...
I don't know if you heard, Netanyahu wants to send us to South Sudan.
Yeah.
I'd love the Sudanese, you know, there's nothing wrong with us being Sudan to visit, but not to actually be ethnically cleansed to be placed to Sudan.
Definitely, definitely. I think it's we're on the same boat, you know. And here in America, I think, you know, we're all, you know, what you mentioned exactly is true as far as the engagement of us as Muslim community here. And I feel like we have enough doctors and engineers. Please, enough of that. We need more politicians. And I really urge everyone to encourage their kids to get involved and engaged with local politics and national politics. So this brings me to a question. Do you have any statistics of how many Muslims are running for Congress or Senate or local governments in the recent years? Is there any shift there? And I would like to make like a free PR or advertisement for my friend Muhammad Saifuddin. He's running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia. He's a federal attorney and he's a former city councilman. Great guy, very committed. So I would like to talk to you, you know, after, if possible, of ways to help him. And I encourage everyone, please, you know, Google him out, reach out, and if you're able to help, you know, he's running against a very strong competitor. So, but he has a chance, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
I can't give you the number of, well, I know for a fact there's no Senate candidates for any of the Senate, 100 Senate seats in the U.S. Senate. So we don't have any senator, Muslim, who's attempting, no, Michigan, right, yeah, Dr. Abdul Said, so he's the only one that's running. For Congress, we have a number of individuals, I think increasingly so. So far we have 4 in Congress that are serving, and I think we will have more running. Whether people can win or not is based on really having to study each of the districts and making sure that the possibility or a path to victory is there. I know that for us, AMP, we do have AJP Action, which is a political action committee. I know CARE has a political action committee, and there are a number of political action committees. And increasingly, we're sending questionnaires to politicians who are running for a seat, and we're requiring for them to respond before we are either endorsing or extending support for them, including for Muslims, because we want Muslims to run, but we also want people to have a very clear path toward victory. So if somebody does not have a 25 percentage point in their district polling, it would not be wise strategically to deploy massive amount of money in a seat that we know for sure it's a losing seat. So our resources are limited, and we have places where we want to deploy our resources for a possible victory, but also we want to deploy our resources in places where we want to defeat someone, right? So we encourage people to actually run for seats, and we want people to actually go gradually, right? I'd like to run to be a king, but that's not possible. You need to start from a school board or a library board or a commission, right? And then move up, right? And not jump without any experience. Is very, difficult to get into the national seat, whether Congress, Senate, or governor. But we are encouraging people to run, especially young, to go through the various gradation. And I would encourage possibly to talk to the political action, whether AJP Action or CARE Action PAC. I think Bazian who was here, right, from your community, he's in the CARE PAC. So I would call him and talk to him and see in terms of where that possible. I know today and tomorrow they will be in the Bay Area with Linda Sarsour having events while I'm in different parts of the state.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you for the informative lecture. I wanted to take you back to, you mentioned that you were going to win the student cases. Can I ask what resources or assistance do you provide for students who've been charged with felonies for being part of a student camp at a university? Like, is there a contact number that we can get for assistance? Because we do have a past community member who has 6 felony counts against him for taking part in an encampment at the University of Pittsburgh. All of the other students charged were non-Muslim, white. They've all had plea deals and been cleared, and he's the only one who's been taken to trial. And there's no one to help him. They've reached out to CARE, they've reached out to local massages. There's nobody.
Okay. I do chair the Muslim Legal Fund of America, and we have taken Harvard cases, Columbia, and so on. So if you could go to MLFA, Muslim Legal Fund of America, and let them submit a form for their case, and our civil division will look at their case, and our legal committee will examine it, and if see for representation, they will take their case if it's specifically civil rights related and protest related. So,
and if it's a criminal case too?
Well, the legal team will take a look at it. Again, we're not shy from taking any of the cases. We took some of the most difficult terrorism cases. The Orlando shooter wife, no, that was our case. We took that case. So we're not shying away from taking it, but the lawyers will take a look. We have 16 lawyers on staff, so they will examine it, and once they consider it, they will give the representation. So Muslim Legal Fund of America. وأنتم كذلك.
Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah khair.
Walaikum assalam. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. You're a very smart man, and I just want you to put yourself in like Israeli position, meaning if you, the Zionists have been very good planners in general. So if we're seeing now a shift in what you call the North, Europe, the United States, moving toward Palestine and so on and so forth, why aren't they caring? Or they feel that this is the end of them? Is it that this is going to go away and the Muslims and in the West are not going to be able to make a difference? The decline of the U.S. maybe in 20, 30 years, they're not going to be the superpower. Should we latch on to another superpower? Can you tell us how they're thinking?
Well, I don't want to pretend that I know what they're thinking, but what I would say is that they are ideological. And the problem with ideologically oriented people is that they suspend reality. So if they're confronted with ideological decision versus realistic decision, they will go with ideological decision. And in such an ideological setup that is also connected to local type of challenges, Netanyahu is facing corruption charges. Right? Many cases of corruption, and the only way he could stay away from prison is by continuing to actually be in the seat of the prime minister because he has immunity. If you remember when the first ceasefire was negotiated, Trump ordered or called on the Israeli Knesset and the Israeli court to throw out Netanyahu's criminal corruption cases, as if like by a wand he could actually tell the courts and so on to do so. So Netanyahu also have structured his coalition with the two most extreme politicians in the Israeli Knesset, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. Both are ideologically committed into settlements expansion, taken over of Gaza, and the concept of Greater Israel. So, since 2023, close to 800,000 Israelis have left. All right? If you actually saw the protest in Malta, the Maltese are actually going out saying we don't want to be the next Palestine, because all of Israelis are coming, buying properties as a result of wanting to leave So there, the Maltese are beginning to actually say we don't want this to take place. Migration is taking place out into Portugal, into Greece, into different places. So we're seeing within the Israeli society already actually recognizing that the experiences prior to 2 years ago are no longer sustainable, while those who are committed ideologically continue to think that they could shoot themselves out of this colonial structure that they have put themselves in. And as such, for me, that Zionism as an ideology is no longer able to deal with the reality that is unfolding. Now, are they thinking of possibly shifting to China? I think China is not in a position to take Israel. They have China's cast its lot with the broader African region, Latin America, and also parts of the Arab world. And they don't see rescuing Israel or connecting to Israel is in their best interest. And I think we are seeing some of this dynamic. Russia is not actually in a position to rescue Israel because they don't see this as a successful path forward. So the dynamic is literally it's left the United States is the only decisively supportive state of Israel, maintaining it in the status quo. And if you notice, Trump said the mega are beginning to hate Israel. He said this in a press conference. This indicating that the U.S. support for Israel is becoming tenuous. Every superpower does change the set of client states based on its national interest. I do think that the United States is beginning to see Israel as a strategic liability. And it's no longer wants to continue down this path, despite the evangelicals, the Christian Zionists, and so on. You could feel in the country that there is a tenuous toward embracing Israel in the way that it was prior to this period. If anything, even politicians who are going are uneasy about their engagement. So that's where if I want to put even today there was an editorial in the Haaretz, basically said that Israel is facing an international isolation. And that's actually a fact. Israelis are no longer welcomed in places where they were embraced in open arms. That's the same dynamics that occurred in South Africa. South Africa, when they opened Sun City, which was a resort area, right, after pushing blacks out from the most favorable lands, and they wanted to have concert, invited these musicians to play in the Sun City resort area. That was a tipping point because all of a sudden mass mobilizations in political activism that put the spotlight on Sun City and went after the musicians who were to perform, calling them to boycott Sun City, and that began to be the shift. That was followed by an athletic restrictions on South Africa participating in athletic programs. That was followed by an arms embargo. I think we're moving down that line in a very, successive type of dynamics that we are witnessing in South Africa. I think we are, maybe the speed of it that we are seeing today, we think it's not fast enough. South Africa, the first boycott resolutions to in South Africa did not take place until the mid-1980s. Nelson Mandela was sent to jail in 1964. Right? It's the first boycott resolution that was in Oberlin College in Oregon was in 1985. So it took quite a long time. Today we're actually seeing this transformation occurring in a matter of months and years, like 2 or 3 years, and it's rapidly so. And we want it to be faster, but transformation at a global level takes place with, positionality that are far more, slower in pace today is actually faster than any period earlier. I could point to the Vietnam War. I could point to the Central American Solidarity Movement in El Salvador in terms of time periodization. Palestine is going through a rapid transformation, even in relations to other areas and other histories that we experienced in the most recent past.
I do have a question on boycott. So, are there any? So I just saw that in Iowa City passed resolution to divest from any Israeli bonds or investments. I don't know about Folsom, so I don't know about how to go about it in California, say in San Francisco.
No.
We don't even know what they're investing in. No. Right? So is there a group or an effort in place that in California, every city controller should disclose where they're investing, and if they're investing, that is, we'll do the next step. But there needs to be an action plan, right? Because I'm hearing a lot of things, but a lot of people feel helpless. And protesting is good, but certain actions also will help. Forcing these people to disclose where they're investing, as well as forcing them to divest from it, be it universities or otherwise, would be helpful. But I'm not seeing, organizationally, we are moving towards that. BDS is more focused on boycott at a consumer level, but divestment, I'm not seeing a concerted effort. Yeah. At least maybe I'm...
No, you're correct. So, BDS stands for three things: boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So the boycott, for the most part, people understand and have engaged in, right? So just 3 days ago, there's a boycott right now of Puma. So I hopefully nobody is buying Puma shoes, right? So you need, because now Puma is the official attire for the Israeli team. So Puma has been now included on the boycott. Starbucks is on the boycott list, and that has been very successful. So for us, AMP, we take the dates boycott. So during Ramadan, that is our national date boycott, because many of the Israeli dates are brought into the US market as well as European market. So during Ramadan, we highlight this. So boycott is your own money. You choose to put it and purchase brands and things that are not connected to genocide, to Israel. But also I would encourage you also not to be using your money in anything that is counter to our moral and ethics. So if you're buying diamonds for Muslim weddings or gold, make sure that it is not blood diamonds. It's not coming from the Congo. It's not coming from Rwanda. It's not coming from oppressive extractions that are taking place. So we're not only Palestine focused, but ethical, moral as well in terms of boycott. The divestment is a much more concerted effort, right? Which requires for us, everyone that has a retirement 401k, which is, Trump is going to make it only O, right, increasingly. Right? So if you have an investment in the 401k in your company, you have the right to know what is the portfolio that is held by your company. Not only that, but you actually have the right in California to direct your funds into an ethical, what you call selection. Right? So you could actually, one, ask for it to know, especially if you're a public employee or a corporate employee, you have that, whether it's Fidelity or whatever, and they actually give you this list. It's not, it's not secret. It's actually public, right? In order for us to have a campaign for divestment, it requires the investment board or the investment committee, whether it's the university or the retirement fund, for them to actually make a decision after pressure. So that requires pressure to do it. Now I'm recommending, right, this again, is that if you are able to file a legal action against or challenge some of the investment committees to do so, because they have fiduciary responsibility. And to say that any investment, 401k or retirement fund that is investing in Israeli bonds or in Israeli companies, that now their investment is possibly liable for a genocide and war crimes. You're not arguing with them whether to take a position to support Israel. Say, you go and support Israel as much as you want, but don't support it with my money. Because I don't want to be liable down the line that the country is taken to face war crimes and genocide, and because you invested, then our funds will be liable for possibly paying $200 million reparation for genocide. So you make fiduciary argument, not a political argument. Okay? So you could file that action, right, that I don't want my funds to be invested in a country that is already facing ICC, International Criminal Court, and facing war crimes, because I see that it will be liable for compensation for war crimes.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Hatem. I want to thank you on behalf of the Muslim community of